This is Catholic Forum. I'm Bob Krebs. Heather Khym is the co host of the internationally popular Abiding Together podcast and the author of Abide. She and her husband Jake are the co founders of Life Restoration Ministries, where she serves as the Director of Vision and Ministry of the British Columbia based apostolate. She also serves as Director of the Celtic Cross Foundation. Heather has more than 25 years of experience as a speaker and retreat leader, offering workshops and conferences in the United States and Canada. She attended the Franciscan University of Steubenville, where she studied theology and catechetics. She lives with her husband and 3 children in British Columbia, Canada. Her latest book is titled Encountering Emmanuel, a guided Advent journal for prayer and meditation. I would like to welcome to Catholic Forum, Heather Khym. Thanks for taking time to be with us today, Heather.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be with you.
I just mentioned before we started recording that it's nice I feel like I know you because every time I go on my Facebook feed, there's a commercial from Ave Maria Press, who's your publisher, promoting this great book. So I just had to interview you since I already think we're BFFs already. So
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today.
well, tell us a little bit about yourself. What did I forget during my introduction of you?
Wow, that was a very kind introduction, and it does capture a lot of what I'm about. I think just in general, I've been trying to follow the Lord for a long time. He caught me at a young age, and my heart just really burns for Him and for God's people. And so I really feel like it's a privilege to be able to do what I do in speaking and podcasting and now writing books. And so, yeah, I'm excited about this opportunity, particularly this Advent, to accompany people through the season of Advent.
How old are your kids?
They are all at Franciscan University. So our oldest is a senior here.
Wow.
She's 21, and our son is a sophomore. He's 19. And then our youngest is 17, and she just started as a freshman. So we're new empty nesters. That brings it's a whole new world now.
Yeah, been there, done that, and you should probably be, putting out books about every 3 weeks since you have
Yes,
so much quiet time.
that's right. It's been a huge adjustment.
I'm sure. So tell us, how did Encountering Emmanuel come about?
Yeah, so Ave Maria approached me with the idea, like, would I be willing to write an Advent study? And I at first I was like, oh wow, what an opportunity, because I love Advent. It's such a special season. In fact, I just think that the seasons of the church are so important because they wake us up to reality. It's just a good opportunity to come back to our senses of what's most important. And so as I was reflecting on Advent, I obviously was going to the two places that we always go during Advent, which is, one, we look at the real coming of Jesus, that was a moment in history where He came, and this is a deep meditation that we need to have during Advent. And then also, as we look towards His second coming, Jesus will come again. And as I was praying about this, I just felt like God put on my heart for this book. He just said, I want to come right now also. And so each day there will be a meditation on the ways that Jesus wants to come to us and encounter us in the various moments of our life and deep places in our heart where we experience brokenness and we're in need of healing. And then there's an opportunity to, ponder some questions and then pray each day. And so that really is the hope, is that we would get into the habit throughout Advent of really inviting Jesus to come and encounter us in the moment by moment of our life and day by day. And I think you and I both know this is a really strange time in the world. A lot feels uncertain. A lot feels shaking. A lot of people are suffering right now. Those who are listening are experiencing deep suffering. And although there are many things that can help, and I think God uses a lot of things, what we need the most is the presence of Jesus. He is the healer. And so this Advent is going to be an invitation for Jesus to come and heal us.
So how is this book different from other Advent books?
I think many other books have just contemplated those two realities that we most often look at during Advent, as I said, which is the coming of Jesus, the Holy Family, and these are such important things. And this is just one little turn, to just say, can we invite Jesus now? Often Advent is about waiting, and although we are preparing for Christmas, this is also a what if we began to invite Jesus every day so that by Christmas time we really have an open heart to welcome the person of Jesus in a new way. And the hope is that this would continue on far past Christmas. I think if we just do a book study, that's only going to go so far. What we really want, I think what we're all desperate for, is for things to change. And from my own suffering and circumstances in life, I've realized sometimes the sufferings don't change. They don't always go away. But inviting Jesus to be with me, that's the Emmanuel piece, God with us. That actually does change everything. It changes my perspective. It changes my heart. It changes my approach. And it comes with the peace and everything that he offers to us.
So walk us through the book. Is it like a reflection for each day of the season, or what will your readers find?
Yeah, so Ave Maria Press does a wonderful job with these studies, and they actually offer so many different ways that people can engage with the content. So there's the book itself, and it's broken up into the 4 weeks of Advent. And each of the 4 sections, what I chose as the theme was the reasons for the incarnation that we find in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. So week 1 is that Jesus comes to save us. Week 2 is that he makes us sharers in divine life. Week 3 is that he shows us how to live. And week 4 is that he shows us God's love. And then each meditation, each day is nested underneath that. The meditations are short because I know sometimes people can find it very overwhelming to do tons of reading. So they're just very short meditations that will lead into questions that we can ponder, and then a time of prayer. Ave Maria Press has also developed videos that I did for each beginning of each week. They're short, about 5 minutes, and they also have a free accompaniment for groups. So if people want to do it with a friend or a small group or a parish group, they can download a free PDF and do this journey with other people, which I love that opportunity.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. To tell us about the multimedia aspects, which I think is kind of unique. Everybody is watching videos on their phone or on their laptops or on their iPads, and this, with the video aspects makes it pretty unique.
Yeah, there's a QR code even on the back of the book, which is just so effective for people to be able to access quickly the rest of the content. So the videos are on YouTube, and you can find them on Facebook and Instagram. They're just going to be available everywhere, as well as the Ave Maria website. And then also the podcast that I do with my 2 friends, Michelle Bensinger and Sister Miriam James Highland. It's called Abiding Together. We are doing this as our Advent book study. And we also have an online group that has like 14,000 people in it that are having online discussions. So even if someone finds themselves in a season of life where they're not able to go out and connect with other people, we still have these other avenues. And I think this is really beautiful and also important, because we are in a time where it's easy to feel isolated and separated from one another, especially after COVID and just all of the things that I think still are impacting us on various levels. This allows us to come into communion with other people, to be able to share life and go deeper into our spiritual life and also our hearts with one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to ask you a little bit later on about your podcast. But for now, tell us, what are some of the traps that people can fall into during this? This is the busiest time of year.
Yeah, for sure. And I get that. I'm a mom. I also take care of my parents who are older. They live right next door to us. And there's just so many demands that many of us have, especially during that season. And honestly, many of them are good. It's like kids' concerts and all kinds of things that are going on in that season. But what's most important is that we're able to just be intentional about carving out a little bit of quiet. And I think that's what separates this season from just other times in life. It's a special time for us to refocus, to make what's most important important again. And so I love the opportunity myself to be able to allow the church through its liturgies and scriptures to remind me, to speak to me of what is most important. And so this book is just going to be hopping on that, what the church is already doing for us to help us engage more with Jesus.
My guest today on Catholic Forum is Heather Khym, and the book is titled Encountering Emmanuel. Um, as a mom, Heather, are there any tips on how parents with young children can use this book, or perhaps any other things that they can do to help make Advent more meaningful?
Yeah, I think if parents are journeying through this, this would be very easy for them to take just the concept of each day without, reading through the reflection that might be over kids' heads, but to just take the concept of each day and turn that into a little prayer and to ask their kids simple questions, like what are ways that you want to encounter Jesus as he comes to us? And there's even some of the reflections have to do with Jesus comes with a face. Each reflection starts with he comes. He comes to wake us from our sleep. He comes into the darkness. So we could ask our kids, where do you experience darkness? And how do you feel about that? And did you know that Jesus is the light of the world? And why don't we just pray right now and ask Jesus, the light, to come into places of darkness? So we can just simplify
Mm-hmm.
the content that's already here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if mom and dad are focusing on Jesus this Advent season, it's bound to spill over to the young ones as well.
Of course. And I think it's very important for us to note that as parents, children are looking to us as the primary model, but also they look to us to get a sense of who God is. So as they see us praying and encountering him and also being changed by him, that's the best thing that we can do for our kids is invest deeply in our own spiritual life, our own healing, allow Jesus to change our hearts so that we can bring his very presence to our children. And I would say for those who aren't parents, same thing applies, to those in our workplace, to those in our school environment, wherever we find ourselves. The world is very broken right now and it's very dark. And it doesn't need mediocre Catholics. What it needs is people who are encountering the real person of Jesus and are able to bring his presence out into that broken world and bring his healing mission there.
Tell us a little bit about the art that's in the book.
Yeah, it is beautiful. There was a wonderful artist named Josiah Henley who came up with the art. And I love that it's a bit of a blend between something slightly modern and then almost like an iconography style art. And so on the cover is very beautiful. But to start each week, there's also art in the book. And if people order it through Ave Maria Press, they get a free print along with it. And I love that aspect because
Mm-hmm.
it's important to engage. As we talked about the multimedia pieces, there's also the beauty of art that can really speak to us on a different level in our hearts. So I just want to encourage people, if they get the book and do this with us, that they would spend some time meditating on that art and just doing a simple like Visio Divina, which is similar to Alexio Divina, just asking God to speak through the art.
Yeah, that's interesting. It seems like you've covered all the bases. You and your publisher have covered all the bases with this effort. I know it's not quite Advent and the book is new, but what has been the reaction from maybe readers who have previewed your book?
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement around it. I think just in general, people love being able to journey together, even if they are doing this without a group. I think just knowing that there are other people on a similar journey. I think in general, people love Advent and they need help. They need help in that busy season to be able to enter in and keep their focus right.
Yeah. Um, how do you want your readers to be different come December the 25th?
Oh my gosh, my deepest prayer, even as I was praying through all of these different reflections, there's a litany actually that I wrote to go along with this. And it's just inviting Jesus to come over and over again. My hope is that this would create a real habit that people continue each day and all throughout the day. If I'm honest, it's not just once in a day that I need to ask Jesus to come and meet me. There's several moments throughout my day where I experience brokenness in relationships, or I get frustrated about something, or I don't know what to do. And the practice has become for me just like, Jesus, will you come and meet me here? Will you come and give me all that my heart needs to be able to live like you and show me how to do it? And so the hope is that people would truly have a deep encounter with Jesus and that would change everything. I know it has in my own life.
You mentioned your podcast. It's
Yeah,
titled "Abiding Together," and Sister Miriam James is magnificent. She's been on
she
this
is.
program before, and she's just great. How did that come about, and what will people experience when they tune into your podcast?
Yeah, so we do it with another friend, Michelle. Michelle and I met here at Franciscan many years ago, and Sister Miriam and I met about 15 years ago. And I introduced all three of us together, and we just had such a deep bond almost instantly and began journeying together, sharing very deeply on a weekly basis, just over the phone in our own conversations about what God was doing. And it was just so fruitful in our relationship. And then there was a guy that I knew in ministry. He was an early podcaster, and he came to me and he said, Heather, I just feel like you have a really interesting voice that the church needs. And what if you did a podcast? And I was too shy. I said, oh, I don't want to do this. I can't do that. And he said, well, what if you did it with some friends? And of course, they came to mind right away, just because I think we all were experiencing so much fruit of just sitting at each other's feet. And so he offered to do all the tech for us and set us off. We just prayed, and all of a sudden we started. And little did we know that it would explode the way it did. It just seems that the Holy Spirit has blessed this tremendously. There's now tens of millions of downloads of this podcast. There are people meeting every week to go through it. We do book studies and seasonal Advent studies, Lent studies, things like that. But just the week to week podcast has prompted people to have their own conversations. We've had so many people who come to us and say, I feel like you're my friends. And I'm just listening to my friends talk, and I'm learning a new language of the heart. So I think as we model vulnerability in real ways and we talk about the real things, we don't hide anything, about the hardships of life, we get right into it. I think the Lord is just using that to deeply minister to people. And I think we just feel incredibly privileged, honestly, to journey with people in that way.
Is it a weekly podcast?
Yeah, it is. So we've been doing it now for 7 years. So there's a lot of content there. So if someone hasn't heard about it before, you can jump in right where we are. But there's also a lot of content there that's evergreen. The small series, short series. If people are like, oh, I just want to meet for a couple of weeks with a group, you can do any of that. Yeah.
And it's abiding together, and it's available through any of the podcast platforms.
Yeah, any podcast app you can find on our website, abidingtogetherpodcast.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. We'll send you the weekly podcast in an email, but you can also find it on YouTube. It's not the video, but just the audio. And then we do have video clips available on Instagram and Facebook. You can kind of find it everywhere. Yeah.
So let's also talk about Life Restoration Ministries. That's something that you and your husband started. Tell us about that, if you would, please.
Yeah, it started out just being an umbrella for all the ministry that we were doing. And as things have gone on over the years, where we find ourselves now is really in the areas of evangelization, formation, and healing. Those are the three primary areas that we're working in. So my husband does a lot of healing work with Sister Miriam and Dr. Bob Schutz for priests and also for bishops. And we're speaking at conferences, and then we're developing human formation programs around identity, mission, and relationship, just to help people with more formation. I find that seems to be an area of need for people in the church. Maybe they're not getting it in their families or just through life in the way that maybe we used to. And so we want to be able to equip people to really live out their God-given glory and be deeply rooted as sons and daughters of God.
What's the target audience for that? Is it for anyone, or?
Yeah, for adults. So for men and women, any adults. I think our content is a little bit deeper. We definitely go under the surface, and that's because Jake and I have had to do that in our own life. And the places that we have met Jesus and been transformed by him, it has borne so much fruit in our life, and we desperately want that for other people. I think often we hide those places, and I think the Lord is just saying, I want to come and rescue you there. No longer are you meant to live in the shadows anymore. So yes, for adults and really people who have some sense of relationship with God already and are on the journey.
Yeah. Life Restoration Ministries, just Google that. Is that the best way to?
Yeah, liferestoration.ca is the website.
Okay, very good. And how can we get a copy of the book?
Yes, you can get it through the Ave Maria Press website. If you get it there, you can also get bulk deals. So depending on how many you order, there's great deals to be had there. But you can also get it on Amazon and probably your local Catholic bookstore as well. And I know because we're doing it on the podcast, it's kind of flying off the shelf right now. So I would love to accompany people this Advent.
Yeah. Well, it sounds really cool. You get the obviously you get the wonderful book with the beautiful art involved, and then of course you have the videos for each week during Advent, and then you can flip over to the podcast and take advantage of that as well. It seems like there's no excuse if you don't have a great Advent this year.
Yeah, I think it's just a wonderful opportunity. And, it's not about what I've written or what Ave Maria Press is doing. It's about what Jesus wants to do. And I believe him. I believe that he is who he says he is. And Bob, if can just share a quick story.
Please
When I was
do.
a senior in high school, my dad was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's large cell lymphoma, and he was in stage 4. They ended up finding it everywhere in his body. It was through his bloodstream, in his bone marrow, all through different organs in his body. And they said that he maybe had 3 months left to live. And as he was in the cancer clinic and they were going to take another look at this clump of tumors, he lifted up a Bible that was on his bedside and he read the story about the healing of the leper. And he asked that Jesus would heal him. And in that moment, he just felt this incredible power rushing through his body. And the next morning, when he went in to get the scan, they came back and they said, "Well, Mr. McGuire, that was a very boring 3 hours because there's nothing there."
Wow.
Jesus miraculously healed him. And I want to share that story because I think we underestimate the power of God and that he is who he says he is. And we've believed a lot of lies over the years that Jesus might not do anything for us. And I just want to encourage people to pray for the gift of faith and to take a step with a book or something like this to open wide the door to Jesus again. And don't be afraid. He's good.
And your dad and mom live right next door.
They do. So, yes, 30 years later, he's still doing well living next door. Yes,
Living proof. Well,
that's
that's
right.
great. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing. Well, the book is titled Encountering Emmanuel. The place to get it would be at AveMariaPress.com. And Heather Khym, thanks so much for spending time with us today on Catholic Forum. Have a very blessed Advent and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much. You too. God bless.